Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Finding Flow, How to Practice Gratitude and Experience Inner Peace webinar. It seems appropriate that just after us in the United States have celebrated Thanksgiving, that the radio station today said, well, that's good. We celebrate Thanksgiving on a day, but I wonder if we could live thanks living, basically. So tonight, we're going to do a couple of things. My hope is it's very experiential. Want to welcome those that are here live, and then also we're recording it. So those that can't join us today, we'll send the link out. Want to welcome you and hope that you learn from our conversation tonight. So we'll talk a little bit about this concept of finding flow. And so for those of you that do or don't know me, I've been a lawyer most of my life, father, and raised four kids, my wife and I, of 39 years. And in my early 30s, I felt this nudge that there was a second season of my life. So in my early 30s, I began studying to get a master's in pastoral counseling, become a spiritual director, started doing workshops, spirituality workshops, and then really for the last 25 years have been moving into this other career as a spiritual director, workshop host, and wrote this book, Finding Flow, that was printed in by Paulus Press in March of this year. And it's really, my passion, as you can see on the screen, is really to teach 4 spiritual practices to integrate into our lives that when I was studying to become a spiritual director, we were asked to write a rule of life, a mission statement that would be kind of the pattern how we organize our lives. And I looked at all the spiritual giants, St. Benedict, St. Francis, Thich Nhat Hanh, the Dalai Lama, Mother Teresa, and I noted that they had 4 lifestyle practices that seem to me that we're rediscovering now in this post-enlightenment age. And one is taking daily quiet time, getting away from the distractions of the world, getting away from social media for 10, 20, 30 minutes, however long we can every day, in whatever way works for us. Sometimes it's meditation. Other people like to be in nature and walk. Other people like to listen to quiet music, but the idea is really taking that daily quiet time to listen to your inner self, connect with your inner self, and also with God as you understand God. The other is spiritual reading, so reading books, also attending webinars like tonight or workshops or listen to podcasts where you're learning new information from people on the spiritual journey that you can pick and choose and say, this one's just right for my journey. So we can integrate the wisdom that our spiritual teachers provide us. The other is community, surrounding ourselves with people that help us grow. So it could be a spouse, good friends, our church, a spiritual mentor, a spiritual friend, just recognizing who is it that God's placed in my life and who isn't in my life that I'd like to add to my life that will help me become the best version of myself. And then finally, a spiritual gifts inventory, taking a spiritual gifts test to determine what are my unique gifts that God has given me? How am I uniquely wired? And how do I want to use those gifts in each one of the seasons of my life? And so I've developed workshops, and on my website, there's also free handouts that you can download on different ways to spend quiet time, different ways of determining who's in your community, and then also a spiritual gifts inventory. And tonight on gratitude really is about the aspect of quiet time, doing the inner work to develop a gratitude practice, or if you already have one, to deepen that practice. And we'll find out why there's a science of gratitude. Why is it good for our mind and our body? And we'll also look at the art of gratitude. Each one of us can learn these tools, some of which about 4 of them tonight we'll really experience. And there's others that you might find in your life. And how do you want to integrate those into your unique spirituality? Kind of like Goldilocks tested, the porridge. Goldilocks tested the chair and the bed and determined which one is just right. So we'll talk about that. But to begin, what I thought we would do is do a Lectio Divina that will really enter into and invite the Holy Spirit, God, our higher power, into this space with us. It's just a way of really centering ourselves and really moving out of the business of the day into the quiet. So I'll stop the share here. And if you'd like to I'd invite you to just get in a comfortable position wherever you're at. Just get your body just really comfortable. And if you'd like to, please close your eyes to just take away the exterior distractions. Just allow yourself in this moment to be present to your body. If there's any tension in your body, let it go, release it. Allow your jaw to get comfortable, your shoulders to relax. And then I invite you to become aware of your breath. The breath is the pneuma, the spirit of God. And in many faith traditions, they teach us that when we came out of our mother's womb and the doctor cut the umbilical cord, the first thing we did was gasp, and God blew God's spirit, the first breath into us that made us animated with God's spirit, brought us to spiritual life as divine vessels. And every breath we take, some say we breathe 22,000 times a day, is the breath of God breathing within us. So just be aware of your breath. Maybe take a deep breath in and then out. And take another breath in and out. And one more breath in. Feel the flow of divine air within your lungs. And then breathe out the busyness of the day to be here now. And as we enter into that quiet space, I invite you through a guided meditation to enter into your imagination and bring to mind someone, something, some place that you just really love. Could be a pet, could be a partner, a spouse, a good friend. Could be a place that you like visiting. Just allow in your heart space just the image of someone or something that you love dearly to arise. Feel that person, place, or thing in your heart. Allow yourself to feel your gratitude and love for that person, that thing, that special presence in your life. Notice what it feels like in your heart space to just feel that love radiating within you. Some say that love radiates, gratitude radiates like a white light in our heart space. There could be a warmth that you feel. Some feel a tingling in their body, in their muscles, in their tissue. Whatever you notice what love feels like within you. Savor that love, that feeling. Notice if there's an emotion that rises up with you. Could be joy, peace, a sense of happiness. Whatever you're experiencing, just rest in it, knowing that you are resting in the love of God in and through that person, place, or thing. And next, radiate that love toward that person, place, or thing. just allow the divine energy of love within you to radiate from your heart space out of your body to that special person, place, or thing. Feel the energy of God's divine love just move from your heart in and towards and through that person, place, or thing. Knowing that in this moment, they are able to experience your love, your gratitude radiating toward them, in them, from you. And then if you'd like, radiate that love to those of us in this virtual circle, those of us that are gathered here live, those of us that will review this recording, knowing that God's love radiates from us into those of us gathered here, into those of us viewing this. You might even, if you want to, put your hands out as a blessing, just raising them up to let that energy flow through your hands out into those of us here and those of us listening, watching, knowing that you're pumping more love into the world. What do you notice in your hands and your heart as you radiate that love outwards? Do you feel a flow? It could be a flow from above you, God's love flowing from above your head into your body, out into the universe. It could be that love flowing from your heart. It could be a warmth going out into our virtual circle. And then if you'd like, radiate that love to the city that you live in, the people in your city. Radiate that love to the people in the state that you live in, the country we live in, all of the continents, the earth that we're all part of as one. And when you're ready, feel free to draw your attention back to your heart space. You might want to place your hands on your heart, on your chest above your heart if you'd like. Take a few deep breaths, and just savor the loving gratitude that just flowed in and through you as a continual presence of God's divine love. Knowing it's real. We can't touch it necessarily or feel it like we can a pencil or pen, but we know it's real because we experience that divine love. It's God's gift. And when you're ready, draw your attention back to the place where you're sitting. Maybe wiggle your toes, wiggle your hands, touch your legs, maybe, just to draw yourself back to your physical body here and now. Feeling your breath. Knowing you can return to this experience of God's love anytime you want. It's always there. Just a matter of drawing our awareness to the divine presence of love and gratitude within us, through us. And when you'd like, feel free to open your eyes and bring yourself back to the present moment. So what did you experience? Anybody want to share what that was like for you? What you experienced, what you noticed?
I felt peace, relaxation, almost like the one time I had a massage at the end of it.
Wow, yeah.
It's kind of a mental massage, heart space massage.
Wow, that's a great way to describe it. Yeah. And that peace would be the fruit of the Spirit. We know it's the presence of God when we know the fruits of the Spirit is love, peace, and joy. We say, yeah, that's the presence of God, that peace. God massaging you with his love.
I try to do something like this regular, but as it always does, I start off with my my brain just going, my thinking, my thoughts. I'm just going, bouncing off the wall, and it
Sure.
takes a while. And as you walk us through, I just settle down, and it just gets better and better and deeper, and then before you know it, I'm just relaxed and I'm following you easier. And that's just the way it works. And when I don't have one to guide, it takes the same pattern. I just have to let go of my thoughts, or watch them and just let them go, and just chill out, and just do as Thomas Merton taught. Just imagine yourself on the bottom of the ocean, and you're just watching these ships go by, and you let them go by. Before you know it, I'm just like Tom was saying, I'm just completely relaxed, and I'm just almost gone, it seems like.
Yeah, you entered this other cool space. Yeah, exactly. Wow, that's cool. And Tony, thank you for sharing that, because our teachers, I think number one, that monkey mind is what I call it. It's normal for all of us. That our teachers teach us that the mind always likes to be stimulated, and so it always needs something to fix itself on, and it really tries to control. But when we give the mind something like our breath, or a word or phrase or an experience, the mind, like you said, Tony, begins to settle down. Okay, I can focus on something different, my breath, my heart, the energy. So many people give up on any type of spiritual practice of meditation because the monkey mind starts up and but the reality of it is, as Thomas Keating on Centering Prayer tells us, that mind's going to do that. And someone complained once, and Father Keating, what do I do? My mind's always wandering. He says, it gives you 1,000 times to return to the presence of God. So we use a word, phrase, an image, to bring us back, and just keep coming back. And like you say, the more we practice it, the more it becomes natural, because as we'll learn, the science tells us we're literally rewiring the neurons in our brain. So we'll talk about why it's not just a spiritual practice, it's a physical mind and mental practice. So yeah. Anybody else that experience want to share? You don't feel you have to, but if you want to share it.
The piece of your instructions that I found the most helpful was that concept of, at our very beginning, our first breath being the breath of God or the Spirit, and everyone since then to the night we're sitting here, that one after the other from that first breath, if we can get back to that concept of that breath is the breath of God, you have that more of a touchstone to get back to
Yeah.
that journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, Linda, think about that. Every breath we take is the breath of God, and it's always there, whether we're aware of it or not. And they say that, we can go without food for several days, even weeks, but we can't go without breath for more than just a few seconds, a few minutes, basically. Yeah. And again, it gives that mind is interesting to me, even in the faith traditions that teach mindfulness. Again, that they teach us to use the mind or the breath as a centering, as an anchor. And I think it helps the mind to know, oh, this is the breath of God I'm breathing. Oh, wow, this is pretty cool. Wouldn't it be like God to, show up with every breath I take? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, for me, I feel an energy, like just a tingling, a warmth. Yeah, it's a very comforting energy, almost like when I'm at Lake Michigan, that when the waves are just gently flowing, it's kind of like this flowing of waves in and out. It's like the energy of God's love flowing in and through me, like waves and my breath. So yeah. Well, cool. Yeah. So what we just experienced was the practice of gratitude. Normally we would take 20, 30 minutes, to really sit in the quiet and practice it if we were doing a weekend retreat or if we're home in our quiet time or someplace. But recognize that just in we took 10 minutes, maybe at the most, in 10 minutes, we'll discover what happened within us. So if you think about there's the science and the art of gratitude. My mom, when she died several years ago, but and my dad was deceased years ago, and she had a great girlfriend. And when they got into a negative space, they go, Louise, it's time to gratituding. She would call it gratituding. She would make a verb out of it. And I don't think she realized it, but what she was doing is rewiring her brain. So there's the theory, the science, and then we'll talk about the art that we apply. It's like we go to school to learn the theory of different things, and that's good. We learn math, we learn science, we learn trigonometry, whatever it is that we learn how to read. But then we have to take the tools of that and put them into practice in a way that's unique for us. We have to integrate it into the art of how we experience it. So the science of gratitude, it's amazing. There has been just tons of research. There's this HeartMath Institute that has been researching the science of gratitude and the heart-mind connection. And what they tell us in this article that was in a couple of weeks ago in one of the blogs I did, there's a link there. And also I think on the Google page, you can link on that. But what science is telling us is they can measure the brain activity of people that are thinking and feeling grateful thoughts. And the research has concluded that gratitude causes this synchronized activation in our brain. It lights up parts of the brain's reward pathways. And I can't pronounce this, hypothalamus. It's basically the part of our brain that quiets us, the relaxation response. So what it does is it rewires our brain when we practice gratitude. I often think of, in the old days, there was the 33 1/3 records that we had, and you put the needle down on the 33 1/3, and a lot of times there'd be a little scratch, and we continue to go round and round and round. And you get this, well, that's what negative thinking does. It's like this, it's stuck in the groove. And what we're learning is the brain is plastic. So if we rechannel those thoughts to gratitude, to positive thoughts, it's like picking up the needle on that 33 1/3 and moving it to a brand new pathway. So then the music flows again. So we're literally creating new pathways that allow serotonin and dopamine to naturally, the calming hormones in our brain, they produce the pleasure of chemical, or the chemical of pleasure within us. So when we think positive, grateful thoughts, the happier and healthier that we feel. And again, it's a sense of gratituding regularly, that the more we do it, it's like we go to the gym, we exercise, our muscles, we learn how to do push-ups or pull-ups, or we walk or do yoga. We're exercising our body's muscles. When we exercise these tools of gratitude in practical ways, we're literally building, we're nourishing our spiritual pathways, our mental and neuron pathways within us. So the Heart Math Institute says that gratitude and appreciation aren't just nice gestures that we do. It's not just being nice people. They're powerful emotions that really, from the heart space, activate the brain's reward pathways, the feel-good hormones and the endorphins that can improve our outlook on life. It literally rewires our brains, improves our health, and lets us achieve our goals and dreams, lowers our blood pressure when we're grateful. Just like what we went through, as Tony described it, first the brain's really active, but then, we go into that kind of that zone place, that flow. Tom is described it as peace. Linda, you talked about, flowing with the breath and your mind. Wow, this is the breath of God flowing in and through me. So it literally calms our nervous system and allows us to get greater clarity. This little chart here, if we look at the middle, is gratitude in the brain. What does it do? And if you look up on it, gratitude wires and fires new neural connections to the bliss center in our brain. So we experience a natural happiness, basically. If you look to the left, it fosters cognitive restructuring. So we really reorder our thinking. If you think about the world as a negative place and, oh, everybody stinks, and well, you're developing a cognitive structure in your brain that everybody's out to get everybody and we're all bad people. But if we begin to restructure our brain into looking for, admitting that there's bad stuff that happens, we don't deny that, it's not, lily white all the time, but when we begin to try to focus on what's good about ourselves and the world that we live in, that God's created, we restructure the brain and we evoke positive thinking. On the right-hand side, let somebody in here. There we go. Yeah, Barbara. So on the right-hand side, as we talked about, it enhances dopamine and serotonin, the neurotransmitters responsible for happiness. And something we all experience so much of is fear and anxiety, that literally when we focus on gratitude, it reduces that fear and anxiety, because it scientifically, it sends those calming chemicals into our brain so that we reduce the fight or flight thing. We are able to calm down. Does that make sense on the science of that? Yeah. Barbara, thanks for joining us. Yeah, we're glad you could be here with us. So that's the science of gratitude. That's like, why would I want to be grateful? Why would I want to practice gratitude? And the reality of it is because it impacts our mind and our body in very positive ways and allows us to gain our goals in life and our dreams. The next is really the art. So we talked about the science of gratitude. Now here's the art of gratitude that each one of us can apply to our own lives, basically. How do we integrate in concrete ways, practicing gratitude, like when we exercise our muscles? One of the things that we're rediscovering in our Western culture since the Enlightenment is we threw out the spiritual practices. We just came into this thing, we can think our way to God. But the ancient traditions, the saints, the mystics, the contemplative people, the people like even the more modern people, Thomas Merton, Mother Teresa, they had specific, very practical practices they integrated into their lives. Mother Teresa, for example, her practice was to go and sit for an hour before the Blessed Sacrament every morning. And she required all of her sisters to do that so that she could feel, a reporter once asked her, why do you do this spiritual practice? You're just sitting doing nothing. It's kind of stupid, isn't it? And she says, I look at God and God looks at me and we are very happy. And that hour of spiritual practice allowed her to go into the streets and really share God's love through her with people that were dying in gutters, and so it really allowed her to adopt that spiritual practice as a way. So what gratitude does spiritually then, and the practices that we'll talk about and others you may already have yourself, it opens the door to the development of a higher spirituality. I like to think of it as it allows the mind to sink into the heart. So the heart is the place of the soul, the place where God connects with us. And let someone else in here. So it allows us to really connect with the heart space where the soul resides within us. So we really enter into that higher spirituality. Tony, you kind of mentioned that. You kind of entered in this wow space, this, you're in the zone basically. So we can tap into that deeper level of consciousness, that deeper awareness of God's presence with us. And so even the word gratitude comes from the Latin word gratus, meaning pleasing, welcome, agreeable. Another root of gratus is related to terms such as grace, gratuity, gratis. So when we talk about the grace of God, again, the only way you can really talk about things is through metaphors. It sounds like, it looks like, you talk about Thomas Merton is like sitting on the bottom of the ocean, looking up and just watching everything. So if we use metaphors to describe what things are like, for grace, I think of it often as plugging into an electric socket. If I have a plug to a lamp, if it's not plugged in and I try to turn the light on, it's not going to plug in. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. But if I take that plug and plug it into the electric socket, even though I can't see the electricity, I know it's there. That electricity charges the light. We can turn on the switch. And so it's like when we enter into gratitude and other spiritual practices, it's literally we're taking our electric cord that of our bodies and our souls and plugging into grace, into the electric current of God, so there can be that flow of God's divine energy through us. And another root of the word gratitude is to praise, to celebrate, to be in contact with the divine, because God created us to be happy. And so that's our natural state. And so we can return to that state whenever we want to. In essence, it's the equivalent of feeling the presence of the divine in our lives. It's a state of bliss. It allows us to see value, virtue, and the benefit in everything, even in the bad things. We don't push away the suffering in life. There is suffering. We have pain in our backs. We have people that pass away. We have pets that pass away. We have a world in chaos oftentimes. And so we don't push those away lily white, but we're able to see the both and of, while there's chaos right now, I can still see the wisdom of God. I can still see the love in the world. So it refocuses our attention to see the both and of life. So many would say that gratitude is the antidote to many forms of suffering. It doesn't take the suffering away, but it really is kind of like when we have a cut on our hand, the cut doesn't go away necessarily. We put balm on it, we put medicine on it, and slowly there's a healing that takes place. So gratitude is like the balm that we place on suffering, so the wounds can begin to heal with God's grace. Some would say that gratitude is the ultimate spiritual practice because it doesn't require any special training or theological studies or degrees. It's just present for us however we want to experience it. And I don't know, have any of you heard of Brother David Steindl-Rast? Yeah, have you, Tony? Yeah. So Brother David Steindl-Rast, many people call him the grandfather of gratitude. He's 96 years old. He's a Benedictine monk. He has this, if you want to check out his website, he has a really universal ministry called grateful.org with all kinds of practices and videos on it. And his whole enduring message is that gratefulness is the true source of lasting happiness. So that he believes, one of the books he wrote that I just loved is Gratitude, the Heart of Prayer. And he says to praise, to bless, to be grateful to God for the many blessings our life is really the heart of communicating that relationship with God. And it's really why we were created, to just enjoy God's love, just like we enjoy our kids or our family. And on Thanksgiving we gather with the family and we're enjoying that gratitude. Well, there's that bliss, that relationship. So he says that's the heart of happiness, is learning to reteach ourselves the natural flow of gratitude in our lives. So again, God, the natural state for us is that God wants us to experience true happiness. And the way to experience that again, because the world is just, has the endless sky is falling news, social media says if I don't have a six pack, I'm not perfect. And, all we see lately is who hates who and who's doing these horrible things. So what happens is that record album, that 33 1/3, with a constant repetition of how terrible the world is, and the mud that, the many times the media and the world keeps giving us, that there's something wrong with us, we begin to develop that. So how we can change those neural pathways in our brain, flipping from negativity to, I call the hallmark channels of life, love, and happiness, is through adopting spiritual practices. And here's just some. Here is prayer, that meditation. We'll talk about a gratitude journal, different ways of being gratitude. We can honor our ancestors, loved ones that are here with us now, or that have deceased. We can experience their spirit of love. And certainly another way is to worship God and to thank God for his presence. So it takes practice to reprogram our brains to a positive outlook. By making a regular habit of gratituding, we turn pessimism into optimism. We open up, as we said, those new neuron pathways, and they become super highways to grateful living, and our resilient hearts flood with joy. Does that make sense? So I'd like us to just take a moment, and if you can grab a piece of paper and a pen or pencil, and let's just take just two or 3 minutes. And if you want to literally write down just kind of a quick, and you can take your phone if you want to, in the notes section or whatever it is, but there's something about taking a pen to paper, a pencil to paper, when we not just think about what we're grateful for, but literally write it down. There's a double whammy we receive. So let's just take a moment in the quiet. And if you just like to write down whatever comes to mind in a minute or two of what are you right now are you grateful for? So just take another couple of minutes here and a couple of seconds here and finish your little gratitude list. While you're doing that, next March, I'm launching a 7-week live Zoom Living in Flow to teach these practices. And my program manager, Joshua, I was talking to him today after preparing the stuff for it. He says that every Thanksgiving, during the Thanksgiving holiday, from Thanksgiving until the coming Sunday, he literally has a whiteboard and he writes 100 things that he's grateful for. And that whiteboard then he uses every day. It's in his living room, or where, I'm not sure where exactly in his house, but he sees that whiteboard and every day it's just there. And I thought, wow, 100 things to be grateful for. He doesn't do it in one setting. He just challenges himself over, a couple of days or even a week to just keep adding to the list. I thought, wow, I'm not quite that disciplined myself, but to think about having that gratitude list, 100 things you're grateful for, and have it written down is something kind of neat. So anybody want to share what did you write down in just those couple of minutes? What did you write down on your gratitude list? Or if you didn't write it down, what comes to mind as you think about gratitude, what you're grateful for?
Well,
the first thing I wrote.
on the top of
Go
my
ahead, Mary.
list, okay. The first thing I wrote was my new knee, because I got a new knee joint a year ago, and this week my other knee's gone out. So I'm really happy that I have one good working knee. And then I told you we live in the Sandhills, and I'm eternally grateful for having such access to the natural world. I can walk out my door and go visit all sorts of natural phenomena.
Yeah.
So those are some of the big ones. My network of support, my family and friends, obviously.
Okay, nice.
And the
Yeah.
technology that'll keep us connected.
Yeah,
So,
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's cool. Yeah. Things we would otherwise take for granted unless we literally just draw our awareness, like you say, Linda, to wow, how cool it is that yeah, I can walk with this new knee. Yeah.
Yep. Until you lose mobility, you just don't, you can't fathom what a great gift it is until you live without it for a while.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Very cool. Yeah. Tony, what you're going to say something there?
Well, it was, yeah. I'm kind of like Linda. I had two things though in a large group, but first thing I wrote down was my family, being my wife and my children and grandchildren, and that just opened up a whole lot of thoughts there. But we've been blessed there. And the second thing that I wrote down was I transitioned into retirement from my work, and that was about 10 years ago. And I went back into work, and then I'm thinking I'm going to transition back out here sometime soon. And I think the point I'm making, it was the transitions. Those transitions were uncomfortable times in every one of them, and I'm probably going to have an uncomfortable time when I make this next one. But it's always opened up something else that I was unexpected, and it's turned out good in the long run, maybe not in the short run.
Yeah.
But I'm thankful. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I can experience, and we all do, transitions. And looking back, we probably, if we look with gratefulness, I'm thinking that we can see some good came out of that, even though it might not have been fun at the time.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So and that included in the family, all these transitions that happened in the family. Some were good, some were bad, but looking back, it helped us grow. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah. And your openness to those seasons of change, yeah, exactly. How cool that is. That yeah. That's very neat. Yeah. What I wrote, one of the things I wrote on my list, my wife, in the old days, we went to a hotel before we had all these clocks and cell phones and everything. You would say to the front desk, could you put me on the wake up list and give me a phone call? And so my wife says, and I love that, she says, I'm grateful I'm on the wake up list this morning. It's like, yeah, I'm on God's wake up list. I mean, just the fact that we wake up each day, that we're not on the obits, is, oh, wow, I get another day of life, the more 22,000 times to breathe in the Spirit of God throughout the day. So wake up list, being on the wake up list was one for me. Certainly my dog Bailey, my wife, good friends, the ability to meet people. I mean, I met Andy a week ago on a friendship thing, it's like, wow, I'm grateful, as Linda said, for the technology that I think God is working through, the universal church. We're able to connect now without having to travel to Grand Rapids, Michigan, or New York, or Nebraska, or wherever people are at. And I think that there is the Spirit of God moving. Certainly we can abuse technology too, but I think that there is a sense of God uses everything to bring out good in that. So I'm grateful for that. Grateful for spiritual friends. Grateful for the breath of life. Yeah. Grateful for God. Anybody else? Oh, I think you're muted, Tom. There you go.
You hear me now?
Yes,
So,
we can.
A couple months ago, I took out a sheet of paper, wrote down all the maladies or illnesses that I've either had or have. And some of them are big, some of them are little, but I came up with over 40. And then I also took out another sheet of paper and wrote down everything that I can still do, i.e. I'm grateful to be able to do these. And I also came up with 40. And some of them are small, like being able to hear, play music, ski in the mountains, which I still do. I mean, and on the other list, I've been hit with cancer and strokes and a few other things that could have killed me. And right now I'm pretty healthy, at 71. And I'm thankful for that. Every morning I have a little routine where I first thank God. I raise my hands, thank God for waking me up.
Yeah.
Extend my arms out, thank him for dying on the cross for me. make wings and ask him to protect me under the shadow of his wings, and then
Mhm.
hold me with love and grace and mercy, and then put my hands down and say, make me part of your will today. Maybe a little bit of your kingdom, but
Yeah.
tell me today. And that's doesn't take long.
Yeah.
It starts my day with God,
Yeah.
a
That's
small
so-
way. And then
yeah.
there are other things. Yep.
And it's a body prayer, isn't it? I mean, you're literally using your body to allow God to embody your you with God's love. Wow, that's really cool. Very cool. Yeah. Anybody else want to share what's on your list or what you're thinking about, you're grateful for? Yeah. And what recognize we just rewired our brains. The neuron pathways, moved us into, wow, a focus on what I'm grateful for. It allowed us, so the science, what happened in our brain affirms that science and spirituality are coming together to confirm that this presence of God is mind, body, and spirit. So, it's good for our minds, it's good for our bodies. And as we talked about, the art of spiritual practice, what we just did, it drew us into that recognition of connecting with God, of being aware of, wow, God is in nature. God is in, my ability to walk. God is in the transitions in my life. God's in the pains and struggles that I have. Yeah. So we're practicing gratitude already, which is, is part of the journey, basically. So, yeah. So let's look at kind of some very specific ways of what I call 3 simple gratituding practices. So the first one, I always like to come up with funky terms. I don't know if you've heard the phrase, it's a great day to have a great day. There's a couple of guys on Instagram I see that go, it's a great day to have a great day. And so I just pull that as a thing. It's really about a morning gratitude scan. So one of my spiritual direction clients several years ago, his name is Nate, really wonderful guy to that. But we were talking about these 4 aspects of finding flow, the quiet time, the spiritual reading, surrounding yourself with community of people help you grow, and determining what your spiritual gifts are. And he just said to me flat, he said, Brian, I can't meditate. That's just, my brain goes crazy, and I just can't do it. He says, I try. And I said, that's okay, Nate. What can you do? And pray as you can, not as not the way anybody forces you to. God's works with us in our own individual ways. So this is about 2 or 3 years ago. And he said, what I think I can do is every morning before I get out of bed, I'm going to lay there for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. And in my mind, just make a gratitude list. What am I grateful for this morning? So again, he was faithfully has been doing that ever since then. And so he'll lay there in bed before he gets up. He says, yeah, I used to rush out of bed or I grumble, oh, I wanted more sleep, or, or just, hurry into the day. And he says, no, what I do is I just take 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, whatever it is, before I get out of bed. And I just scan myself to say, what am I grateful for today? It could be coffee. I'm going to go downstairs and get a cup of coffee. It's being on the wake up list, as we talked about. It could be, I'm grateful for God. He talks about the fact that he lays next to his wife. She's still sleeping. He reaches over and just touches her and says, I'm grateful that she's my mate for life, for this period of my season of life. So that's one practice that we can do. And what Nate found over a period of time, just that daily practice of laying in bed for a few minutes and naming 3 or more things he's grateful for, it spilled into the day. And he came back a couple months later and says, I'm finding myself during the course of the day, when I start getting grumpy, I stop and I focus on what I'm grateful for. And he says, so he's developed this whole gratitude practice. And 3 years later, he's now developing a meditation practice, where he can sit in the quiet and meditate. And he usually uses gratitude as kind of the launching point, to still his mind and open his heart. So one thing we can do is, before you get out of bed every day, lay there for 2 or 3, 4, 5 minutes, and just name things you're grateful for. Nate actually taught me, I actually have adopted that practice, and 9 times out of 10, once in a while I don't do it, but most mornings, the alarm goes off, my cell phone goes off, and I lay there in the morning and I, just, okay. And usually it's the same things on my list. It's my best friend, Ralph. It's my wife, Denise. It's my dog, Bailey. It's God. It's being on the wake up list. So it can be repetitive, but sometimes it's, I'm grateful for a busy day today that's filled with the opportunity to serve. So that's one practice you can do. I call it it's a great day to have a great day. And why it creates a great day is because we're already focusing our mind on what we're grateful for. So it's setting an intention really to be grateful for the day. Does anybody do that in the morning? Tom, you kind of do that. I mean, maybe not when you're in bed, but you kind of start your day with that gratitude. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, I mean, that's the first thing, is just thank God for waking me up.
Yeah.
Giving me this opportunity for another day.
Yeah. What a wonderful way to begin the day. Yeah, to set an intention for the day. So that's one practice that we can do. And it again gets your neurons and your heart flowing in a positive direction. The other thing is, I referred to my mom. My mom's name was Maureen, and her best friend was Louise. And again, they were both widows, so they spent a lot of time as good friends. And they get into this negative, and they started this thing when one of them was negative. They say, Mort, my mom's nickname was Mort. Louise would say, Mort, change the channel. Or when Louise was bitching and complaining about something, my mom would go, Louise, change the channel. And their joke was, literally, like, we can change the channel, we can turn off the news and turn to the Discovery Channel or something else, we can, or the Hallmark Channel, we can literally change the channel. And so that's the second practice, that during the course of the day, and I don't know about you guys, but I find when I'm sitting in the quiet in the morning and it's, and I'm just beginning my day, it's relatively easier to be in that contemplative space. It's when I walk into the world and crash, bam, blah, 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 even if it's not bad things are happening, just a lot of things happening, I find myself getting into that negative space. So the steps we can do is first notice when your attitude is turned to complaining. My buddy Ralph and I, Tom knows Ralph, we work out at the gym and for an hour every day, pretty much. And we usually do 30 minutes on the elliptical, and the TV screens are all up there. And there's, of course, the news channels from, all the different stations. And so we start grumbling about the politics, and before you know it, and we're both on the same wavelength. So we're not arguing with each other, just grousing, basically. We tease each other like in Sesame Street, those two old men sitting in the balcony. We're like the two old men. So we've started this practice. Okay, you get 30 minutes to complain about politics. And then when we move into the next part of our workout, that's it. So it's our form of changing the channel, because Ralph lives alone and he needs someone to kind of grouse with and stuff like that. And but we do 30 minutes, but we notice, and when sometimes it slips into the rest of the workout, we usually go for coffee afterwards. We'll say, hey, come on, let's change the channel, basically. So notice when your attitude turns from complaining about yourself. We could start doubting ourselves, not liking ourselves, about life or people around you. Scan your body and notice the signals. Is your jaw tight? Are you grimacing? Is your temper flaring hot? Are your emotions turned dark? My dad used to turn to my mom when he was alive, and he'd say, Mort, if you keep that frown on your face, it's going to freeze in a constant frown, basically. So again, he was just helping her recognize, our body gives us signals of what emotions we're in. So be aware of your body. What is it saying to you? And can you relax your body and be aware of it? Also notice, are you numbing yourself throughout the day? So much now, there's video games, there's social media, there's toxic substances, there's gossip, backstabbing. Notice if you're numbing yourself. What am I? And again, some of it's okay in moderation. One of my biggest defaults during the day is I check Instagram constantly on my phone and my emails. And I notice that it becomes a distraction because I'll get an email like, oh, shoot, I got to deal with this. And I'm all of a sudden in this nervous thing. So notice if you're numbing yourself in the outer world here, which is okay. The outer world's there, but is it pulling you away from your inner world? And one of our teachers, one of my spiritual teachers says, there are two worlds. There's the outer world, which is, the exterior world around us, people, places, and things. And that's part of God's creation, but can be very distracting and we can get caught up in it. And then there's our inner world. How do we draw ourselves back in the middle of the day? Wow, what's going on inside of me? Wow. Am I calm? Am I peaceful? Is there a way to recenter myself? Am I numbing myself? So, pulling ourselves back to our inner self, what's going on inside of me? And I have the ability to make changes in that. We can name 3 or more things we're grateful for. If there's something that's bothering you, again, turn the channel and remind yourself. So one of the things that I'd invite us to do as we change the channel during the day is this 3-step approach. So when I was a kid, my mom would tell me, Brian, you need to be patient. You're not very patient. You need to be patient. And it used to make me more angry because I would think to myself, well, do I flip a light switch and now I'm patient? It was like I was aggravated. I wasn't patient. So she would recognize my impatience. She's trying to tell me to be patient, but she didn't tell me how to get there. And the HeartMath Institute, which does science and spirituality kind of together, gives us these 3 steps. And I want to kind of take us through them and then maybe allow us to just apply it, perhaps, if you'd like to, in a few moments, to a situation that recently happened or happened today. So when you notice yourself, the first step, noticing the resentment, the anger, the negativity, just name it. What is it? So today, I'll just give an example. I was getting ready for our webinar tonight and really having fun working on, had some spiritual direction clients and working on my course I'm going to teach. And I got an email from the office, one of the guys who I love and respect him a lot, but it was a negative email about the budget that we were putting together for next year. And it was kind of a gripey one. And he was kind of attacking me saying, I should do X, Y, and Z. And I just went, I just did the grumpy old man, like, God, it made me anger. And, normally I would just let the anger take me away. But what I did using this approach, step 1 is I named the anger. I'm angry. I really feel like I was disrespected by one of my business partners. So I named it. Okay. And then the second piece, and this is the key to it, is we need to neutralize that emotion, because what happens is, so I'm angry. So all my fight and flight stuff are going on like ding, 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 ding. And I'm totally stuck in this nervous, this angry, this fearful mental and emotional state. So what HeartMath says is the bridge is to give yourself compassion. And that's the important piece, is to say, you know what? I am angry right now. And it's okay that I'm angry. Anger is not a bad thing. It's what I do with it that's important. So can I allow myself to just be okay with my feelings? And what that does is that pulls us out of this, anxiety, this fearful stage. It neutralizes the negative emotions with a positive, a neutralizing one, typically compassion. So again, using my example, I went, yeah, okay, I'm angry. Yeah, I do feel like I've been disrespected. And is it just okay for me to be perfectly human? And yeah, it is. And that just allowed me to calm down. And then it opened the pathway for the third step, which is, okay, what am I learning from this situation? And one was, so it allows us to look at the wisdom as we let go of the negativity, as it neutralizes it. We ask ourselves, how am I being invited to grow? What is the wisdom that this situation is giving to me? And for me, it was just, accepting life on life's terms, okay. It was also, I'm safe. I found a gentle way to respond back, spoke my truth with love, saying, I don't think that's appropriate, And so that's kind of a 3-step approach that we can take. And it's like we don't just flip the switch to the positive where we want to be. We need this intermediate stage of saying, is it okay to just be okay with the feelings that I'm feeling right now? Does that make sense? Anybody want to think of you kind of use that 3-step approach something that happened today or recently, or someone you're frustrated with, or circumstance where you would want to just, with us as a group, just kind of walk us through naming it, allowing yourself out loud to say, it's okay for me to feel X, Y, and Z, and then ponder, okay, how is it inviting me to grow? Quite a challenge, huh?
Hey, Brian, I'm not sure I can do this as well as you can, but I did feel something today. My wife and I keep our grandchildren on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And at this point in time, we have one that is 2.5 years old and learning to talk, but can't express itself to where she can fully help someone like me understand what the problem is.
Yeah.
So bottom line here is we play well, but then when she gets sad or something's wrong, she cries. That's the first impulse. And I just really don't like that. And especially when I don't know why the crying is going on. So today I had to step back. I'm not so sure I neutralized the negative feelings by giving yourself compassion, but I did have to step back and try to say, okay, what's going on, and don't get anxious, and just see if you can work your way through. Fortunately, my wife was there and she mainly worked it through, but I still felt it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
And I don't know, then she was still crying, but I usually get her down to take a nap. I'm the one who seems to be able to do that better than any of the grandparents here. And so I didn't know what I was going to do. She was crying, but then I think going through the ritual and me settling down, that might not be the right word, but just trying to take the negativity and don't let it overwhelm me. She felt that, our granddaughter, I think, and she settled down and went right to sleep. But I'm not sure that's a shot at it, I guess.
No, that's yeah. And again, there's the science of it, but there's the practical, how do you apply it? And so my sense is you really did do those 3 steps. It was, you notice, oh, darn it, it's making me angry that she's crying and I don't know what the heck she wants. So there's maybe some fear around that, some anxiety. It's like, oh, this is driving me crazy. The second step was you comforted yourself. You moved into that quiet space. My wife is a school teacher, and she's retired now, but she would tell the kids, count to 3. That's really giving yourself compassion. Just allow yourself to calm your nerves, so you can gain some deeper clarity. To neutralize it, and then my sense is she felt as your body, moved, like we earlier today in the Lectio Divina, we moved into that energetic phase of love and, radiant. I mean, obviously you calming yourself then was the ability to calm, she could feel that calm, that comfort within you. And and so I think that's perfect. That's a perfect example of that. And that's wonderful. So it's that sense of that middle step. Well, first of all, naming it. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. It's, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to name it perfectly, just whatever it is, but then stepping back, and like you did, Tony, as you step back and gave yourself some space, okay, what's going on here? And my sense is what we're doing in a spiritual, well, I think 2 things are happening. One is we're calming down the neuron pathways. We're allowing us scientifically to settle more into that positive hormones that flow through us and calm ourselves. And spiritually, we're creating space for the Holy Spirit, in that calm space, how even if it's an instant, to come in and give us, my sense is those words, hey, what's going on here? Was you and the Holy Spirit talking to each other, like, what's going on? And it calmed you. And then, yeah, you filled your heart with the wisdom of gratitude, the calm. Doesn't have to be necessarily gratitude. It's just a positive emotion of calm. And then you were able to really emanate that calmness to her. And wow, that's powerful. Yeah, it's a good example. Yeah, so that's just a practice that, and I find this is the hardest one for me is during the day, to not, like exactly like you said, Tony, not to get caught up in the emotion and the anger of it all. One of the things, again, is time out. I notice when my wife and I, sometimes, if we're in an argument about something, which is, hey, can we just take a break here? And I'll go into the other room and, yeah, it's that I'm neutralizing the negative emotions. I'm naming them, I'm trying to calm myself, going to quiet time. Why do we, in school, why do we put kids in a quiet time? It's not necessarily to punish them. It's to get them to really calm themselves and regain that, that compassion so that they can learn what am I supposed to be doing? So yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's really a tool that we can use in the course of a busy day. Because like I said, I used to get so frustrated. I would share with my spiritual director each month. It's like, Larry, I can sit here in contemplation and, I'm chanting, God loves me. And and it's like, I get done after an hour. It's like, really? I have to go into the world today. It's like, can't I just sit here? Because that's the hardest challenge, I think, for most of us. I know for me is how do I move into the day and not get overwhelmed by it? And so that threefold practice, however you integrate it in your own way, becomes a nice template that we can use. Notice when you're angry, frustrated, negative. If it's the news that's bothering you, notice the news. Oh, I'm angry that I'm, okay, I can give compassion to myself. Yeah, the news is getting me angry right now. What can I do about it? What's the wisdom God's invite? Turn that doggone TV off to a different channel or completely, So there's practical things we can do. And that's the ability that God gives us, if that makes sense. So yeah. So that's something we talked about what we can do in the morning. We talked about what we can do during the day, again, to notice, to name, to try to calm ourselves with compassion, with love, or just some time out, whatever it is that works for you, to neutralize and come back into that zone of positivity, and then asking, what can I do? What am I learning to do here? Basically. So yeah. And then another practice, in my Roman Catholic tradition, sometimes I like to use different words because we were trained in school religion class, to do an examination of conscience, and that's a good thing. I'm not ditzing it. Many of you may have heard that term, but I tell you, the older I get, it pulls me back into the, God's going to beat the crap out of me, and I got to figure out what I did wrong today. Oh my God. And then I was shaming myself with an examination of conscience. And that's not what's intended to do at all. It's supposed to be a positive thing to reflect on the day, where I say the presence of God. So I like to just call it evening check-in. So before we go to bed, or the time, maybe we're brushing our teeth, or when we get into bed, before we turn off the lights, just looking back at the day and saying, what were a couple of things that happened today that I'm really grateful for. It refocuses us to look back at the day and really discern, oh yeah, this happened today. When my kids were young, my wife, again, being a good school teacher, she would say to our kids, she'd tuck them into bed, they say the evening prayers, and she would use this language with the kids. What was your warm fuzzy today? And she really was doing an examination of conscience, an evening check-in with the kids. And literally, they would say, well, I'm grateful that, I did X, Y, and Z, or I'm grateful that I was able to play with Julie, or I'm grateful I got my homework done, or, so it really is that sense of what was your warm fuzzy today? Where did you experience the presence of God? What are you grateful for? Does that make sense? So I would invite us, if you would, just to think back over your day today. Is there one thing or a couple of things that happened today as you look back over the last 24 hours and say, yeah, this was my warm fuzzy today. This is what I'm grateful for. This is where I experienced God's love or and presence, however you want to look at that. What happened today that was good today? I know for me, I began this day with about 6 or 7 appointments on my calendar, and I'm like, I'm retired. I'm not supposed to have to be back in this. And so this morning I was grateful, tried to move it into gratitude of, I'm grateful to be able to, it's Tuesday and it's Giving Tuesday or whatever it was. So it's a giving day, but I was, by the middle of the day, I was kind of overwhelmed with just appointment after appointment. And I'll be honest, my 3:30 appointment didn't show up on Zoom. And I, sent an email saying, hey, we were scheduled at 3:30. I'll hang out here for 15 minutes. If not, give me an email and respond back. And I have to be honest, I was glad that I had that break. I got a whole hour and a half and I took a nap. And I was like, thank you, God. I'm grateful that you gave me some space today in a day to breathe. So that was one of the big things that I looked at today, that I'm grateful for some space to breathe, and knowing that I'll reconnect with this person. And I sent her an email saying, I hope you're okay and everything. And I haven't heard from her yet, but I appreciated the breath of relaxation in the middle of all that. So anybody else?
A mentoring meeting this morning, I kind of helped start it at our church, and we have just, not the numbers aren't the most important, but we have over 40 pairs that are regularly meeting, and I'm trying to move it into youth because that's kind of my heart.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for the people that are leading it. Is it 5 of us, and it's a good gig. I've seen mentoring programs that don't work.
Yeah.
Mentoring relationships that don't work, and yeah, I'm thankful for that. I'm grateful.
Yeah, that's great. Good. Yeah. And the cool thing is, Tom, you're using your gifts, in that spiritual gifts inventory. As you take your gifts, not only are you using your gifts to make the world a better place, but you're also receiving that gratitude, like, wow, this is making me know who I am. I am a vessel of God's love in the world and making a positive change. Yeah.
And I think I'd give the others a lot more credit for success so far at the church. Yeah.
But you're the seed planter, right?
Well, I'm trying to get the youth aspect going, and
There you go.
we're making some inroads. The numbers aren't where we'd like to see them, but that's us, not God. And we need to be patient and do it in God's time.
Yeah. The remnant, God, I always think about that in the Old Testament. God talks about the remnant. It's like, oh, yeah. Well, good for you. Anybody else? What happened today was your warm fuzzy here that you're grateful for?
Well, I had to get new tires for my car, and the good thing was that it was done sooner than I thought. And also the people at the dealership and the driver that drove me back and forth for the house, they were just so nice and so helpful. And I knew that they were honest and trustworthy. That sense, it was very nice.
Oh, yeah.
Grateful for that.
Yeah, yeah. And isn't it cool that we can literally look at just those common everyday things that happen and say, yeah, I'm grateful, yeah. In the 12-step program, so someone will be sitting in the meeting and someone is complaining, oh, I have to take my car and to get fixed. And someone will say to the person, oh, so you have a car. Oh, you have the ability to have your car fixed, and they, again, are helping them flip it and see it. And so, Barbara, good for you that you immediately saw it in that good light. Yeah. All these good Samaritans helping you. And yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. And wouldn't it be like God to work through the simple things in life? It's not always the huge, miracles and skyrockets. Sometimes it is the big things, but many times it's that small day-to-day things and being aware of them at the end of the day to say, yeah, thank you for the warm fuzzies today. Anybody else? Beth, it's good to see you there. Glad you could join us.
Thank you.
We are focusing on, we went through the 3 different practices, and right now we're looking at the end of the day, I call it an evening check-in. What was your warm fuzzy for today? And so we talked about at the beginning of the day, maybe begin the day with a gratitude list, either when you're first in bed or when you get out of bed, just focusing on 3 to 5 things you're grateful for. During the day, recognize when you're frustrated, when you're getting to that grouse thing, and then change the channel. How do you give yourself, name the whatever's frustrating you? Yeah, I'm frustrated by X, Y, and Z. Give yourself compassion for, yeah, it's frustrating, but I'm perfectly human. It's okay to be frustrated. And then allowing that as your neurons rewire and neutralize the anger, and you calm down to say, okay, what am I learning from this experience? And this third one that we're just going through right now is at the end of the day, just looking back at the end of the day, again, and we might call it an examination of conscience, a warm fuzzy, or an evening check-in. Just what happened today, a couple of things that you'd say, yeah, I'm grateful this happened today. So yeah. So anybody else want to share your warm fuzzy today? Something that happened today? Another one that I'm grateful for is that we're all here. I mean, it's amazing to me, that we're here. We are throughout the whole United States sharing, our spiritual practices and how we're growing and how we're each helping each other through our sharing our stories and learning from each other. How do we practice this gratitude that's God has given us is a deepest desire. Yeah. Anybody else?
Yes. I have one daughter, and she is a traveling nurse and the mother of 3 small children.
Mm.
So, she's moving all the time, and moving, I mean, throughout her day. She's very busy. So
Sure.
we've found ways to continue to stay connected. And the one that I'm most appreciative for is that I am her drive home at night or drive to work companion by phone. So we have lots of conversations by phone while she's traveling, picking up kids or going to the grocery store, wherever she's going. It's sort of the next thing is to call mom, and
Yeah.
then we can catch up with each other. So just that tradition of
Yeah.
finding places in her day where I can still be a part of that. And
Mm.
it seems to be a blessing to both of us. And
Wow.
so I had one of those calls today. So
Wow. How
I'm
cool is
grateful
that?
for that.
Yeah, how neat. Yeah, that mother-daughter relationship, how cool that is. Yeah, and the technology, as you said earlier, Linda, that you can be in contact with her. Yeah. That's cool. Very cool. Yeah. Anybody else have a warm fuzzy as they look back over their day, evening check-in that they're grateful for? Yeah, so just ponder that, continue to use that as a practice just before you go to bed, is that evening check-in. Want to do things that happened today that you're grateful for. Some ideas. Did someone smile at you or offer you a compliment? Were you able to resolve a problem today? Did you experience God's love through a friend, a spouse, or a pet? Simple things like, did I have enough food to eat today? I mean, most of us, at least in this circle, probably do have enough food to eat and a place to sleep, but many people don't. So grateful for the simple things like that. Were you able to spend some time with someone you love, a spouse, a partner, a friend, a family member? Whatever happened to you during the day. One of my spiritual directors, I love this, that Charm is her name, and she says, name it. So some of us named what we're grateful for. So name it, receive it as gift. So we embrace it as, wow, this is a gift from God. And then we lift it up with gratitude to a grateful heart again. And I love that, how Charm has taught me, and I love to teach my kids and my wife and myself, is to name it. What am I grateful for? I'm grateful for an appointment that got canceled today and I had some space to breathe. Receive it as a gift. Oh, God knew what I needed today. I needed a break to take a little nap, before I moved into the rest of the day. So I receive it. I name it as gift. And then I lift it up with gratitude. So I let it go and just say, thank you, God. So just another body prayer is kind of Tom was sharing in the morning that we do. We can use our body to name it, receive it as gift and lift it up with gratitude. Or so, yeah. So here one of the things that as an attorney, one of my bosses would say, whenever you go to a webinar or a workshop, it's great to listen to people and and learn new things. But he would always say, okay, what are you going to put into practice? What did you learn today that you're going to integrate either into your professional practice as a lawyer is what he would invite us to, but also in our spiritual practice. So a question, as we come to a close here, there's really kind of four things that we've talked about today. One might be creating a written gratitude journal, literally on a regular basis, creating a notebook or on your phone, under the notes section, or as I said earlier, my buddy, program manager for the course I'm going to offer next year, Joshua, he has it on a whiteboard, 100 thing. He's great, whatever works for you, but maybe consider creating a written gratitude journal, the writing down reinforces, the neuron pathways of gratitude and refocuses our energy on the spiritual connection with God. So the other would be these other three practices. Again, I love that aspect of the Goldilocks principle, that there's not a one size fit all. We learn these different practices, just like Goldilocks tested the porridge, tested the chair and then the bed, and found out which one was just right for her. So as you look at either a morning gratitude list, maybe when you get out of bed or first thing in the morning, changing the channel during the day, the evening check-in, or gratitude journal, or some other practice, what's your take home? What would you say, this Advent season, those of us in the Christian tradition, we enter into the Advent season and we're invited, it's kind of weird to me. We hear so many words of preparing for God to come. It's like, well, God's already come, for God's sakes. God lives in our hearts. So it's not like we're waiting for some future event. It's more about recognizing God is within us. And so at least for me and for some of my teachers, it's about integrating some practices to make me more aware of God's presence in my life. So that would be an important thing to do. So if you want to and you don't feel you have to, but what on that list or other practices would you like to either continue or integrate into your life for the Advent season to make it a habit? Anybody want to share?
Yes, I can share a little bit. So I would say introduce or incorporate a little bit more of, meditation, for example. Sometimes we do pray, like in my case, I do pray, I try to pray every day, but unfortunately I'm so busy. I'm so busy that I feel like I just do it as a habit at one point. And I realized that when I reflect upon it, I say, what did I get from the prayer I did this morning? So it's like a battery, and it's supposed to help you charge your faith and your communication with God. But once it becomes a habit and it becomes just to do it because you're doing it and you're doing it fast because you just got to do it, it becomes a problem. Because we lose the sense with the Almighty. We lose the sense with the being mindful of Him, being mindful of His Spirit. So I guess that's the thing that I in my case personally, I need to start introducing a little bit more of that, because at the same time, it's body, mind, and soul. So it has to be connected with the Lord also. That's the way I identify that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, good for you. And that's, that's a God nudge, God inviting you, like, and it's your heart's desires, life giving for you. So yeah, good for you, Andy. So yeah, that morning meditation practice years ago, about 25, 30 years ago, I I went to church, I did all the intellectual stuff that, and raising my family and but like you, Andy, life was just so busy. And I went to a retreat at our church. It was every night for about 5 days. And something was stirring in me. It's like, oh, there's something really, and I went to, the guy was actually a retired lawyer that was giving the retreat. And on Wednesday during the week, I said, I got it, Brian, and his name was Brian. I said, I got to talk to you. And
What a coincidence.
yeah, it really was. There's talk about God, doing coincidence. And I said, Brian, there's something, I want to go deeper. What do I do? And he says, well, do you pray? Oh yeah. I say the rosary at times and I, before meals. He said, and that's good. That's traditional prayer and that's good stuff. But he says, do you sit in the quiet and listen and find these different practices for 20 minutes or so? And I said, to be honest with you, I don't. And he really introduced me to the contemplative tradition of meditation. And he said, what I want you to do, we go home tonight, set your alarm clock a half an hour earlier, get up in the morning, get your cup of coffee, go to the bathroom, let the dog out or whatever you need to do. And then create a space in your house that's kind of your prayer corner, a special place where you are alone with God, and maybe get a candle that you like, a picture of Jesus and some things in nature, whatever it is, just create a prayer space, you and God's little prayer space. And he said, I want you for the next 7 to 10 days, show up every morning there. And he says, you'll resist it at first because you want to get more sleep than an hour. I'm too busy. But he says, no, you've given yourself an extra half hour. He says, after 7 to 10 days, it will be a habit and it'll be life forming because it takes 7 to 10 days for our bodies and our minds and our spirits to form a habit. And I tell you, that was the best advice that Brian Casey, I still remember his name. He was a lay Catholic evangelist. He called himself. It's like, okay. But it's the best advice. I wrote about it in my Finding Flow book. It's the best advice. And I pretty much 99% of the time, I spend that time. And so I just offer that even in a busy lifestyle, that extra half hour sometimes. And you're also learning, are you an evening person or a morning person? My wife is an evening person, so she walks at the end of the day, and because she likes the evening, she's not a morning person. I love getting up early in the morning. So you find your rhythm too. Is it in the morning you want to do it or the evening? What works best with your body rhythm? But yeah, good for you, Andy. Yeah, I will lift you up in prayer that practice is life-giving for you. So that's cool. Anybody else? Practice you'd like to? I know the one for me I need to work on is change the channel during the day, and I had to, pat myself on the back with that email that came from the office today. I actually worked it through. I allowed myself to be angry. I named it as anger. I try to calm myself down and just, give myself compassion. It's okay, Brian, that you're angry, and then ultimately I learned, this is acceptance. I'm safe. Just send a nice, gentle, loving response. And so, but that's the one I got to work on the most, is changing the channel when the negativity starts, it's really fear. I think it's, really fear of something, but anyway.
My takeaway was that change the channel as you was going through it. And then I was able to kind of integrate that to my experience today. But I want to begin to be more intentional in doing that in the future. I have a practice that I do just I don't know, because of my age and what's coming to be my sleep habit, I guess, is I'll wake up in the middle of the night. And of course I have to do that because of my age. I use the bathroom, and then when I go back to bed, again, my mind is just racing, bouncing off the wall. The monkey mind starts up and it wants to just go.
Sure.
And so I have created this habit of, in the middle of the night, mind you, just take a time. It's that 20 to 21 to 30 minute time, and go through a centering prayer meditation activity. Sometimes shorter, sometimes longer. And then I can somehow roll over and get into my second half of sleep. It's turning out to be a pattern that I'm not sure I like, but it's just what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
And I got a feeling that practice over these many months has given me was able to help me see of what I was doing today in the essence of that changing the channel. Now, I'm not sure about that, but
Yeah.
but your explanation did kind of synchronize and resonate with me there.
Yeah, yeah. And Tony, I would just affirm, Sharm, again, I'm so grateful for the different spiritual teachers I've had. Sharm was one of my spiritual directors years ago. And she would say, when you wake up in the middle of the night, it's like Samuel, in the Old Testament, Samuel, he hears this voice, he can't get back to sleep. And Sharm would say, exactly as you're doing, is God wants to talk to you. Just go downstairs, get a cup of milk or tea and light a candle or whatever works for you. And Tony, you're doing it, do a centering prayer because God just wants to spend some time with you. It's like, okay. And so, yeah, when I'm like that too, I don't wake up a lot where I can't get back to sleep. But when I do, and my mind's wrestling, I remember what Sharm said. It's like Samuel, God wants to talk to me. So it's like, sometimes okay, God, what do you want? It's like, but centering prayer is a better way because it's a little bit more focused. So yeah, I would affirm that that's a God nudge, Tony. And I would also affirm that it's integrating into your change the channel practice with your granddaughter and that's the sign when you see more love flowing from you. It's like, oh, wow, this is working. God and I are together integrating this into our lives. So that's the fruit of a practice that, yeah, you don't always like it, but okay, God, I'm here. I'm coming to the Garden of Gethsemane with you. I'll stay awake for a few minutes. So good for you, Tony. Yeah, yeah. Anybody else? An Advent practice of something here or anything else that they'd like to integrate or they're already doing?
Well, two things. I really liked when you described it as a 3-step process. You name the anger, the resentment, or the negative feeling or whatever, and then you stop and give yourself compassion rather than jumping from naming it to responding differently. It's that middle step that makes the third step happen. And just because my anger is not bad. My anger doesn't mean I'm failing at trying to be a kinder, more loving person. I validate my own feelings. And with that, it creates the energy to move, or the power to move to the next step. So I really want to think about that as how important that middle piece is, and not trying to bypass it to get to the way I want to behave. And then the second thing I wanted to ask Tom before we're done here, I'd like for him to go back through that body prayer thing. That was really cool. And I'd like to hear that again.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. I almost stopped and asked you to do that, Tom, but good. I'm glad that you mentioned that, Linda. Yeah, we'd love to see you do that.
Okay, so I wake up in the morning. Sometimes I have to go to the bathroom first, but as soon as I'm done with that, I raise my hands together and thank God for waking me up, giving me another day, and basically taking me through the night.
Okay.
Then I spread my arms out like I'm on a cross, which I know I'm not, but I thank Jesus for dying for my sins. And then I, excuse me, drop my arms down a bit like they're wings. I know that was a practice in ancient times that people would look for the shade from their king, as a metaphor, I guess, for protection. But I ask God to protect me and my loved ones and keep us safe today. Then I kind of put my arms around me, like I'm hugging myself, and ask God to love me with mercy and grace today. And then I just drop my hands down like I'm praying and ask that God use me as part of his kingdom today. I recognize it's a small part, but I want to be that. I want to be the receptor for what he wants me to do today.
Yeah. Wow.
So that starts the day. I can't say I'm
Thanks.
perfect in carrying it out. Is that understandable then, or?
Hey, Tom, would you do me a favor?
That's
Do
great.
us a favor, could you've got my email, can you kind of put that in an email to me? And then when
Sure.
I send out the link to everybody, the recording, we'll all have, and I'll put that into the email. So if you
Okay.
want to put it in a little short, bullet points, I think that'd be really great. So we can all, really enjoy it because that's powerful. So yeah.
Cool. I will, no doubt about
Okay.
it. Yep.
Super, good deal. Good deal. So anything else before we go? Anybody, and say our final prayer? So, just, it's interesting that the gratitude really is that life force within us. I mean, you look at Jesus's life. I mean, Jesus is the perfect model, of course, for us as Christians and for all universal truths, I think in many ways. And what did Jesus do, before he did a miracle? I thank you, Father, when he changed the water into wine, he filled with gratitude. You just see, maybe even look in scripture, how many times was Jesus grateful? Did he praise the Father, in that sense of gratitude? And again, sometimes we just look at it as scriptural, like, okay, he's just, but as we talked about tonight, and Beth it can affirm that as a doctor, we talked about that scientifically in our mind and body, when we do gratitude, we are changing the neuron pathways. We are giving our bodies those calming hormones. And so it allows us to be more connected to our inner self and to the divine. So another practice might be, how many times do we see Jesus in scripture lifting up gratitude, basically? So continue that practice if it appeals to you, and may you continue to grow. I thought as a closing prayer, we could say the serenity prayer together, because that's what gratitude brings, as we talked about, is that sense of calm serenity. So do we want to read it together as a group, or do we want to do a line at a time? What's the group want to do? Would be life-giving. How about we do
Let's do it together.
together? Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So let's begin. God,
Grant me the
Grant
serenity
me the serenity to accept the things I
things I
cannot
cannot
change,
courage
courage
change
to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Living
one day at a time.
time.
A time, enjoying one moment at a time.
Taking this world
This world as it is.
As it is,
Not
and
as I
not
would
as
I
I
would
would
have
have
it.
it.
Trusting
That
that you will make
That
Make
you will
all
make
things
all
right.
things right.
if
I surrender to your will,
my will, so that I may
be reasonably
happy.
happy.
be happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen.
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 Yeah.
It's a nice prayer.
Yeah. It's beautiful, isn't it? Yeah.
Very good.
Well, thank you, everybody, for being here, for your wisdom, for your insight. I always end, it always brings me tears that when we join together like this, and there's people intentional about that relationship with God, it reminds me that God is real, and he's right here within each one of us. And it's so wonderful to join together with, however the large or small the group is, that we're all on this journey together, and we experience, walking on this journey, learning from each other. And I'm just grateful for each one of you and for God's presence as we show up here, and for those that will listen to the recording that couldn't be with us. So may you have a grateful rest of the evening and a grateful Advent season.
Thank you.
You're a
very
good
much.
man of God,
you.
Brian, and thank you very much. You really
Thank
are.
you,
Great.
Brian.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
God bless.
Good night.
Night
Bye.
now.